Captain Lee Tae-ho stared at the massive structure floating in the darkness of space. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. The metal was black as night, but it seemed to shimmer with its own light. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing softly like dying stars. "Captain, we should not be here," said his second officer, Park Woo-bin. The young engineer kept looking at his instruments with worry. The Federation warned all ships to stay away from the void sector. Tae-ho nodded, but did not turn around. His ship, the Eternal Dawn, was small compared to the ancient structure before them. They had been exploring the outer edges of human space when their sensors picked up this massive object. It was bigger than most space stations, but it was clearly very old. "Dr. Kim, what do you see?" Tae-ho asked into his communication device. Dr. Kim So-jin was in the observation deck with her research equipment. She had been studying the structure for the past hour. Her voice came through the speakers filled with excitement and confusion. "Captain, this is impossible," she said. "The metal is older than any known civilization. But the symbols, they look familiar somehow." So-jin was the best scientist they had. She studied old civilizations and their languages. If anyone could understand what they were looking at, it would be her. "How familiar?" Tae-ho asked. "I need to get closer. Can we dock with it?" Woo-bin shook his head quickly. "Captain, our orders were clear. We are supposed to map this sector and return home. We are not supposed to investigate unknown structures." Tae-ho knew Woo-bin was right. The Galactic Federation had been very clear about this area of space. They called it the Void Sector because nothing was supposed to be here. Most star maps showed it as empty space, but now they had found this ancient structure and Tae-ho could not ignore it. "Scan for life signs," he ordered. The ship's computer worked for several minutes before responding. "No life detected. The structure appears to be dormant. However, there is a weak power source still active." So-jin's voice came through the speakers. Again. "Captain, I am reading something incredible. Those symbols are not just familiar, they are a form of ancient human writing." Everyone on the bridge stopped what they were doing. Ancient human writing was not supposed to exist. Humans had only been traveling in space for a few thousand years. They were one of the youngest species in the galaxy. "That cannot be right," Woo-bin said. "Humans are new to space. We barely had writing when other species were building star empires." "I know what I am seeing," So-jin replied. "These symbols match patterns found in the oldest human ruins on Earth. But this structure is millions of years old." Tae-ho made his decision. "We are going to dock with it. Prepare an exploration team." "Captain," Woo-bin started to protest. "I know the risks," Tae-ho said firmly. "But we cannot ignore this. If Dr. Kim is right, this changes everything we know about human history." The docking process took 2 hours. The ancient structure had docking ports that seemed designed for ships like theirs, which was strange. How could something millions of years old be compatible with modern human ships? Tae-ho, So-jin, and 2 security officers entered the structure through an airlock. The air inside was breathable, though old and stale. Emergency lighting activated as they moved through the corridors, as if the station knew they were there. The walls were covered with the same glowing symbols they had seen outside. So-jin ran her portable scanner over them, recording everything. "These are definitely human in origin," she said. "But the language is more advanced than anything in our historical records. It is like seeing a fully grown tree when you expected a seed." They found a large central chamber filled with strange technology. In the center was a massive crystal that pulsed with blue light. Around it were workstations with screens and controls that looked surprisingly familiar. "Captain," one of the security officers called out, "you need to see this." He was standing in front of a wall covered with star maps. But these were not ordinary maps. They showed the entire galaxy, with thousands of points marked in the same glowing symbols. So-jin studied the maps with growing amazement. "These points mark human settlements. But look at the dates." She pointed to symbols at the bottom of each map. "If I am reading this correctly, these settlements are millions of years old." "That is impossible." Woo-bin's voice came through their communication devices. He had stayed on the ship to monitor their exploration. Humans were not even evolved. Millions of years ago. Suddenly, the crystal in the center of the room began to pulse faster. The screens around it came to life, displaying streams of information in the ancient human language. "It is activating," Sojin said with excitement. "The station is waking up." Before anyone could stop her, she approached one of the workstations. As soon as she touched the controls, the crystal flared with brilliant light. Information began flowing from the station's computers into her portable devices. "Dr. Kim, step away from that console," Taeho ordered. "Captain, this is incredible. It is downloading the entire database, star maps, historical records, technology specifications. This information could revolutionize everything we know about human civilization." Alarms began sounding on their ship. Wubin's voice crackled through their communications, filled with panic. "Captain, we have Federation ships approaching fast. 3 heavy cruisers moving at maximum speed." Taeho grabbed Sojin's arm. "We need to leave now." "Just a few more minutes," she pleaded. "The download is almost complete." "We do not have a few more minutes." The download finished just as Federation ships arrived in the system. Taeho and his team rushed back to their ship and undocked as quickly as possible. The ancient structure went dark again, as if it had never been active. "Human vessel, you are in violation of Federation space law," came a voice over the communication system. "You will surrender immediately and submit to boarding." Taeho looked at his crew. The Eternal Dawn was fast, but not fast enough to outrun 3 Federation cruisers. However, they had something the Federation did not expect. "Wubin, remember those modifications you wanted to make to our engines?" Taeho asked. "The ones you said were too dangerous?" Wubin replied with a slight smile. "Now would be a good time to try them." As Federation ships closed in, the Eternal Dawn suddenly accelerated beyond what should have been possible. They escaped into hyperspace just as the Federation ships opened fire. Later, safely in hyperspace, the crew gathered to examine what Sojin had discovered. The information from the ancient station was vast and detailed. It showed human settlements throughout the galaxy, dating back millions of years, advanced technology, massive space stations, and star maps that covered the entire known galaxy and beyond. According to this data, Sojin explained, humans were not just present in the galaxy millions of years ago. They were the dominant species. These records show human settlements on thousands of worlds, including many that are now home to other species. "But what happened to them?" asked Wubin. "If humans were so advanced, why are we now considered a minor species on the edge of the galaxy?" Sojin looked through more of the data before answering. "I do not know yet. But there are references to something called the Great Sleep. It seems like humanity voluntarily went dormant for some reason." Taeho stared at the star maps displayed on their screens. Each glowing point represented a world that had once been human. Now most of those worlds belong to other species who claim to have evolved there naturally. "Send a message to all human colonies," he ordered. "Tell them what we found. Humanity has a history that was taken from us. It is time we learned the truth about who we really are." As the Eternal Dawn continued through hyperspace, carrying the most important discovery in human history, none of them realized that their actions had set in motion events that would change the galaxy forever. The ancient database had not just been downloaded. It had sent activation signals to thousands of dormant human installations across the galaxy. After millions of years of silence, humanity's true legacy was beginning to awaken. Admiral Yoon Dong-wook did not believe in fairy tales. He had commanded human fleets for 30 years, fighting to protect human colonies from raiders and hostile aliens. When reports came in about ancient human civilizations and awakening space stations, he dismissed them as nonsense. "Sir, we have confirmation from 17 different colonies," reported his aide, Lieutenant Commander Park Jin-woo. "Strange structures are activating across human space. Some are underwater, others buried deep underground." Dong-wook looked at the reports on his desk with suspicion. "Probably old Federation installations. They want us to waste time chasing ghosts while they prepare some new restriction on human expansion." "Admiral, with respect, Dr. Bai Jiwan has analyzed the genetic samples sent by Captain Lee's team. Her findings are unusual." Dr. Bei Jiwan was the fleet's lead geneticist. She had studied human biology for most of her career and was not given to wild theories. If she thought something was important, Dongwook would at least listen. "Send her in," he said. Dr. Bei entered the Admiral's office carrying a datapad and looking troubled. She was a small woman with graying hair, but her eyes were sharp with intelligence. "Admiral, I have been studying the genetic information recovered from the ancient station. I have also compared it with samples from current human populations across the galaxy. And our genetics are not natural. Human DNA contains sequences that appear to have been deliberately modified. Large sections of our genetic code are locked or dormant. It is as if someone wanted to limit our capabilities." Dongwook frowned. "That makes no sense. Why would anyone want to make humans weaker? I do not know, but there is more. The genetic markers suggest these modifications were made very recently in evolutionary terms, perhaps 50,000 years ago. Before that, according to the patterns I am seeing, humans were very different." Before Dongwook could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. His communication officer's voice came over the speakers. "Admiral, we have multiple reports of structure activations throughout the sector. These are not small installations. Some of them are the size of moons." Dongwook and Dr. Bei rushed to the bridge. On the main screen, they could see feeds from various human colonies. On New Seoul, a massive structure had risen from the ocean floor. It was bigger than their capital city and covered in the same glowing symbols Captain Lee had reported. "Sir, we are receiving similar reports from 43 colonies," the communication officer reported. "The structures appear to be scanning human populations and then going active." "Scanning for what?" "Unknown, sir. But the Federation is mobilizing every ship they have. Intelligence reports suggest they are declaring a galaxy-wide emergency. On the planet Busan Prime, colonists watched in amazement as ancient towers emerged from mountains that had stood unchanged for thousands of years. The towers reached into the sky, their surfaces alive with flowing patterns of light. Settler Oh Min-sik had lived on Busan Prime his entire life. His family had been among the first colonists, and he knew every mountain and valley. Yet these towers had been hidden beneath the surface all this time. "Daddy, what are those?" asked his daughter, pointing at the towers. Min-sik did not know what to tell her. According to the reports spreading through the colony, these structures were somehow connected to ancient humans. But Min-sik's ancestors had been simple farmers from Earth. How could they have built something like this? As he watched, the towers began to emit a low humming sound. The sound seemed to go right through him, and for a moment Min-sik felt something strange. It was like remembering a dream he had forgotten, or hearing a song from his childhood that he thought was lost forever. Back on Admiral Dongwook's flagship, more reports were coming in. The Federation had closed all borders to human space and was demanding that all human ships return to their home ports immediately. "Admiral," Dr. Bei said quietly, "I have been analyzing the energy signatures from these activated structures. They are not just buildings or space stations. They are machines of some kind, and they are all connected." "Connected how?" "Quantum communication networks that span the entire galaxy. These structures are talking to each other faster than light speed. They are sharing information and coordinating their activities." The main screen showed a galaxy-wide map with thousands of points of light appearing. Each point represented an awakening structure. They were not just in human space. They were everywhere, including worlds now controlled by other species. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Galactic Federation Council," the communication officer announced. The screen changed to show Chancellor Vex 9, the insectoid leader of the Federation. His compound eyes reflected no emotion, but his voice carried barely controlled panic. "Admiral Dongwook, by order of the Federation Council, all human military vessels will return to designated ports immediately. Any human ship found outside colonial boundaries will be destroyed without warning." "Chancellor, what is the meaning of this? We are operating within our treaty rights. Your species has activated illegal technology that threatens galactic security. These ancient installations must be shut down immediately." "We did not activate anything. These structures turned on by themselves. That is irrelevant. You will comply with Federation orders or face the consequences. The transmission ended abruptly. Dongwook looked around his bridge at his officers. They all knew what this meant. The Federation was preparing for war. On the research ship Eternal Dawn, Dr. Kim So-jin was still analyzing the data they had recovered. She had made a discovery that changed everything. "Captain Lee, you need to see this," she called excitedly. Taeho joined her at her workstation. The screen showed star charts and geological surveys of various planets throughout the galaxy. "I have been comparing the Federation's official records of planetary evolution with the data from the ancient database," So-jin explained. "According to Federation science, the various alien species evolved naturally on their home worlds over millions of years. That is what we have always been taught. But it is not true. The ancient human records tell a different story. These species did not evolve naturally. They were uplifted. Uplifted, advanced artificially, accelerated evolution guided by an outside intelligence. And according to these records, that outside intelligence was humanity." So-jin showed him genetic analysis charts comparing various galactic species. The patterns were clear once you knew what to look for. "Humans did not just dominate the galaxy millions of years ago," she continued. "They created the other intelligent species. The Federation races are humanity's children, evolved and uplifted from primitive animals." Taeho stared at the data in shock. If this is true, then everything we know about galactic history is a lie. It gets worse. The records indicate that these uplifted species were created to serve as caretakers while humanity entered something called the Great Sleep. They were supposed to maintain galactic civilization until humans awakened. But instead, they took control and erased all evidence of their creators. Exactly. And now that human installations are awakening, they are terrified that their crime will be exposed. Across the galaxy, similar realizations were occurring as more human scientists gained access to the spreading database. On the research station Hope's End, Dr. Lim Nari was discovering records of the original uplift programs. Each Federation species had been carefully designed and educated by their human creators. The proud Valdorian Empire, with their claims of 50-million-year-old civilization, had actually been uplifted from simple pack hunters only 12 million years ago. The wise Centauri collective, who presented themselves as the galaxy's eldest philosophers, were created from hive-minded insects and given individual consciousness by human genetic engineers. Every major power in the galaxy owed their existence to humanity, and they had spent millions of years covering up that fact. Dr. Nari sent her findings to every human colony she could reach. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Humans throughout the galaxy began demanding answers from their governments and from the Federation itself. But the Federation was not interested in answers. They were preparing a solution that would ensure these questions were never asked again. Admiral Dongwook received intelligence reports that Federation fleets were massing at strategic points around human space. The numbers were overwhelming. Every Federation species was contributing ships to what appeared to be the largest military force in galactic history. "Sir, they outnumber us 1,000 to 1, reported his tactical officer. "Then we will have to be smarter than them," Dongwook replied grimly. He turned to Dr. Bay, who had remained on the bridge studying her genetic data. "Doctor, these modifications you found in human DNA, is there any way to reverse them?" "Theoretically, yes. But it would require advanced medical technology we do not possess." "What about the technology in these awakening installations?" Dr. Bay looked thoughtful. "It is possible. If these structures really are ancient human technology, they might contain the means to restore our original genetic capabilities." As if, responding to their conversation, new signals began coming from the awakening installations. They were not just scanning humans anymore. They were sending out complex patterns that seemed designed to activate something in human physiology. On colonies throughout human space, people began reporting strange experiences. Enhanced reflexes. Chancellor Kang Min-ho had governed the human colonies for 15 years. He had always believed that diplomacy could solve any problem. But, as he looked at the Federation ultimatum on his desk, he realized that some problems could only be solved with strength. They want us to destroy our own heritage sites, he said to his council. They claim these awakening structures are weapons that threaten galactic peace. Are they weapons? Asked Defense Minister Yang Soo-jin. Dr. Lim Na-ri's research suggests otherwise, replied Science Advisor Lee Dong-hyun. The structures appear to be restoration facilities designed to reverse genetic modifications and restore human capabilities. Na-ri had spent the last week analyzing data from awakening sites across human space. Her findings painted a picture of galactic history that was both amazing and terrifying. Chancellor, I need to brief you on what we have discovered, Na-ri said as she entered the council chamber. She looked exhausted but determined. The Federation has been lying to us for millions of years. They are not the ancient civilizations they claim to be. They were created by humanity as caretaker species while our ancestors entered a planned dormancy period. That is an extraordinary claim, Minho replied. I have extraordinary evidence. The genetic patterns are clear. Every Federation species shows signs of artificial uplift. Their DNA contains markers indicating guided evolution, and the guidance signatures all point to human origin. Na-ri activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Thousands of points lit up across the starfield. These are all former human worlds, according to the ancient database. Most are now occupied by Federation species who claim they evolved. There naturally. But the geological record shows clear signs of previous human habitation. What happened to those humans? Asked Minister Yang. According to the records, they entered stasis chambers deep within the planetary cores. The plan was for them to sleep while their uplifted children maintained galactic civilization. When the time was right, the humans would awaken and resume their role as guides and teachers. But that never happened. No. Instead, the uplifted species suppressed all evidence of their creators and took control of the galaxy for themselves. They even modified the remaining human populations to limit their capabilities and erase their memories. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Everything they had been taught about human history was false. They were not a young species struggling to find their place in an ancient galaxy. They were the galaxy's original inhabitants, betrayed by their own children. Dr. Na-ri, how many humans are still in stasis? Asked Minho. Based on the activation patterns we are seeing, potentially millions. Every time a restoration site comes online, it sends wake-up signals to nearby stasis facilities. As if summoned by their conversation, alerts began sounding throughout the government complex. Communications Officer Park Jin-soo rushed into the chamber. Chancellor, we have a priority transmission from the Kepler system. Something is happening at the archaeological site on Kepler 7. The holographic display changed to show a feed from the Kepler system. On the planet's surface, massive structures were rising from underground. But these were not empty installations. Humans were emerging from them, but they looked different from modern humans. They were taller, moved with perfect coordination, and their eyes held knowledge that seemed ancient. One of them approached the colony's communication array and began speaking. His voice carried an authority that commanded attention. I am Jin Hyuk-soo of the First Colony. I have slept for 3,700,000 years. The Great Sleep was meant to last only until our children were ready to govern themselves. Why do I wake to find them ruling as tyrants over our diminished descendants? The transmission was being broadcast across the galaxy. Every human colony received it, and emergency sessions were called in Federation capitals throughout known space. Minho realized that the situation had moved far beyond his ability to control. These awakening humans, whom Dr. Na-ri was calling the Forgotten, possessed knowledge and technology from humanity's golden age. They would not be content to hide in the shadows while their people suffered under Federation rule. Get me Admiral Dong-wook, he ordered. The Admiral appeared on the communication screen moments later. His ship was near the border of human space, watching Federation fleet movements. Admiral, what is our military situation? Not good, Chancellor. The Federation has assembled the largest war fleet in recorded history. They are positioning ships around every human system. If this turns into a shooting war, we cannot win through conventional means. What about unconventional means? Dong-wook's expression grew thoughtful. The awakening installations are providing our people with enhanced abilities. Our pilots are showing improved reflexes, our engineers are solving problems they should not understand, and our scientists are grasping concepts that previously took years to learn. Is it enough? I do not know yet, but I have received reports that some of the awakening sites are not just restoration facilities. They contain manufacturing systems and defense networks. On the planet Jeju Nova, Chief Engineer Song Ki-tai was experiencing this firsthand. The installation that had awakened near his colony was producing materials and components using technology he could not fully understand, but somehow knew how to operate. It is like the knowledge is already in my head, he explained to his team. I look at these control systems and I just know what to do, even though I have never seen anything like them before. The installation was manufacturing ships, but they were unlike anything in current human fleets. They seemed to be grown rather than built, their hulls flowing with organic curves that somehow appeared stronger than conventional armor. Sir, these vessels do not match any known design specifications, reported his assistant technician Baek Soo-jin. That is because they are not from known specifications, Song replied. They are from humanity's original archives. These are the ships our ancestors used to explore and settle the galaxy. Similar scenes were playing out on dozens of human worlds. Ancient manufacturing systems were coming online, producing technology that made current Federation equipment look primitive, but it was not happening fast enough. The Federation had decided to act before humanity could fully awaken. Their massive fleet began moving toward human space, broadcasting a final ultimatum. Humans of the outer colonies, came the voice of Supreme, Admiral Korvash, military commander of the Federation fleet. You will immediately cease all activities related to the illegal installations and surrender unconditionally. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your colonies. Chancellor Min-ho knew he had no choice. The Federation fleet could destroy every human world before the awakening process was complete. But he also knew that surrender would mean the end of humanity as a free people. All human colonies, this is Chancellor Kang Min-ho. We will not surrender. We will not allow our heritage to be destroyed again. Stand ready to defend our worlds and our freedom. The declaration was broadcast throughout the galaxy, on human worlds everywhere. People began preparing for a war they could not possibly win through conventional means. But they were not conventional humans anymore. The genetic modifications that had limited them for millennia were breaking down. The knowledge of their ancestors was flowing back into their minds. And deep beneath their worlds, ancient humans were awakening with capabilities that the galaxy had forgotten. Dr. Nari had discovered one more crucial piece of information in the ancient archives. The Great Sleep had not been voluntary. Humanity had been forced into stasis by a coordinated attack from their uplifted children. The current crisis was not the first time the Federation had tried to eliminate their creators. Chancellor, there is something else you need to know, she said privately to Min-ho. The attack 3 million years ago that forced humanity into the Great Sleep was not the end of the war. It was just the beginning of a very long pause. What do you mean? The ancient records indicate that humanity prepared for the possibility that their children might betray them. They built safeguards, contingency plans, and weapon systems that would activate if they were ever threatened with extinction again. Are you saying we have hidden defenses? I am saying that the Federation may have just made a very big mistake. They think they are attacking a weak, primitive species, but they are actually attacking the species that created them, and that species had millions of years to prepare for this exact situation. As Federation fleets moved into attack positions around human worlds, automated systems that had slept for millennia began to stir. The galaxy was about to rediscover why humanity had been the dominant species long before any of the current civilizations existed. The children were about to learn that their parents were not as helpless as they appeared. General Shin Jae-wook opened his eyes for the first time in 3 million years. The stasis chamber around him dissolved like morning mist, and he stepped out into a world that had changed beyond recognition. He stood 2 meters tall, his body perfectly preserved by ancient technology. His mind held memories of the galaxy when humanity had been its guiding force. He remembered the day they had chosen to sleep, trusting their uplifted children to care for the worlds they had built together. Status. Report, he said aloud, though no one was present to hear him. The installation's artificial intelligence responded immediately. General Shin, you have been in stasis for 3,712,000 years. Emergency awakening protocols were triggered by threat assessment systems. Humanity is under attack. Show me. Holographic displays surrounded him, showing the current state of the galaxy. He saw human colonies under siege by Federation fleets. He saw his descendants, genetically modified to be weaker and smaller than their ancestors. He saw a galaxy ruled by the species he remembered, as eager students and trusted allies. How many of us remain, he asked. Approximately 2 million humans are awakening from stasis across the galaxy. However, current human populations number in the billions. They have been isolated on frontier worlds and deliberately kept ignorant of their heritage. Jae-wook felt a mixture of sadness and anger. The Great Sleep was meant to be temporary, a way to allow their children time to mature and learn to govern themselves. Instead, those children had committed the greatest betrayal in galactic history. Activate all defense protocols, he commanded. It is time to remind the galaxy who we really are. Across the galaxy, ancient systems that had waited patiently for millions of years began to stir. On the human colony world of Incheon Prime, Dr. Han Yoo-jin was experiencing changes she could not fully understand. Yoo-jin had been a quantum physicist before the awakening began. She had spent her career struggling with equations and theories that seemed just beyond her grasp. Now, as genetic locks in her mind dissolved, concepts that had taken her years to partially understand became as clear as simple arithmetic. The quantum manufacturing systems are not just producing ships, she explained to her research team. They are reshaping matter at the subatomic level. We can literally turn one element into another. Her assistant, Dr. Park Seung-won, looked at the displays with amazement. How is that possible? It should not be, according to our current understanding of physics, but our ancestors understood principles we have forgotten. They could manipulate the basic forces of the universe in ways we considered impossible. The installation Yoo-jin was studying had produced a small fleet of vessels overnight. But these ships were unlike anything in current human space forces. They moved without visible propulsion, their hulls seeming to bend space around them. Dr. Han, incoming transmission from Admiral Dong-wook, announced Communications Officer Lee Min-jun. The Admiral's image appeared on their screen. He looked tired, but determined. Dr. Han, I need your expert opinion. Our scouts report that Federation fleets are using weapons and tactics we have never seen before. They are desperate to win this quickly. What kind of weapons? Star killers. Devices that can destabilize a sun and destroy an entire solar system. They are prepared to commit genocide to prevent humanity from fully awakening. Yoo-jin felt something change inside her as she heard this. Knowledge that was not her own began flowing through her mind. She suddenly understood weapon systems and defensive technologies that had been used in humanity's ancient wars. Admiral, tell all human colonies to activate their planetary defense grids. The installations should respond to the command Solar Shield Protocol. What will that do? It will protect our worlds from star killers and any other weapons the Federation might use. Our ancestors faced similar threats before. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Dong-wook gave the orders. Across human space, colonists spoke the ancient words into their communication systems. The response was immediate and spectacular. Massive energy fields appeared around human worlds, shimmering barriers that extended far into space. When Federation scouts tested these shields with conventional weapons, their shots simply disappeared, absorbed by technology that operated on principles they could not understand. But the real surprise came when General Shin Jae-wook and the other awakened humans began to coordinate their actions. They possessed knowledge of military tactics and strategy that spanned millions of years. They understood how to fight wars on a galactic scale. The Federation believes they have us surrounded, Jae-wook explained to a gathering of awakened humans on the world of Mokpo Station. They think they can destroy us before we fully recover our strength. They are making the same mistake they made 3 million years ago. Elder Council member Kim Da-yoon, who had awakened on a different world, joined the meeting through quantum communication. She had been humanity's chief diplomatic advisor during the original crisis. "General, what are our strategic options?" she asked. "We have several advantages they do not know about. First, the installations they thought were just awakening us are actually nodes in a galaxy-wide defense network. Second, their own technology is based on principles we taught them. We know how to counter everything they have. What about their numbers? They still outnumber us tremendously. Numbers matter less when you can control the battlefield." Watch. Jae-wook accessed controls that had been hidden in the awakening installation. Across the galaxy, systems that had appeared to be natural stellar phenomena began to reveal their true nature. Pulsars that had been sending regular signals for millions of years changed their patterns. Black holes that had remained stable suddenly began affecting nearby space lanes. Nebulae that had been navigation hazards started moving in coordinated patterns. "The galaxy itself is our weapon," Jae-wook explained to the amazed humans listening. "Our ancestors did not just build installations on worlds. They built installations in space itself. Every major stellar feature in this galaxy was modified or created by human engineering." Admiral Korvash, commanding the Federation's assault fleet, was the first to realize what was happening. His navigation systems began reporting impossible readings. Space lanes that had been stable for millions of years were shifting. Gravity wells were appearing where none had existed before. "How are they doing this?" he demanded of his science officers. "Unknown, sir. The changes appear to be coming from installations hidden in stellar phenomena throughout the galaxy. Our sensor networks are detecting massive energy signatures in locations we thought were empty space. Can we destroy these installations?" "Sir, some of them appear to be inside stars or black holes. We do not have weapons that can reach them." On human worlds, people who had lived their entire lives as struggling colonists were beginning to understand their true heritage. The genetic modifications that had limited their ancestors were breaking down completely, and abilities that had been dormant for millennia were returning. Construction worker. Oh Sung-ho found himself able to understand and operate machinery that had never seen before. Teacher Jung Yoon-soo discovered she could access historical databases with her mind, drawing on knowledge that had been locked away for millions of years. "It is like waking up from a dream," Yoon-soo explained to her students. "We thought we were young and weak because that is what we were told. But we are the descendants of the people who built this galaxy." The children listened with wide eyes as she told them stories from the ancient archives, stories of humans who had traveled to other galaxies, who had created new forms of life, who had built structures that lasted for millions of years. But the most important discovery came when Dr. Yu-jin realized the true purpose of the quantum manufacturing systems. They were not just making ships and equipment, they were preparing for something much larger. "General Shin, I think I understand the final phase of the awakening process," she reported during a secure transmission. "These installations are not just restoring our people and our technology. They are preparing to implement the restoration protocol." Explain. According to the archives, if humanity was ever threatened with extinction, the installations were programmed to begin a complete reset of galactic civilization. Every world, every species, everything would be returned to its original state from before the uplift programs. Jae-wook was quiet for a long moment. The restoration protocol had been humanity's ultimate safeguard, a way to undo millions of years of galactic development if their children proved unworthy of the gift they had been given. How long until the protocol can be implemented? Based on current activation rates, perhaps 72 hours. But General, if we use it, billions of sentient beings will lose their intelligence and return to their pre-uplift forms. Entire civilizations will vanish. And if we do not use it, humanity will be extinct within days. The Federation has made their choice clear. They prefer genocide to admitting their origins. Across the galaxy, the final phase of humanity's ancient contingency plan began to activate. The species that had created galactic civilization was preparing to unmake it, rather than see it used as a weapon against their children. The Federation had awakened a sleeping giant, and that giant was remembering why it had once ruled the stars. Commander Oh Seung-ho had never commanded a starship before the awakening began. He had been a simple construction worker on the colony world of Gwangju Prime, but as his genetic heritage restored itself, knowledge flowed into his mind like water, filling an empty well. Now he stood on the bridge of a vessel that had grown itself from raw materials in less than 6 hours. The ship was alive in ways that current technology could not explain. It responded to his thoughts as much as his voice. Commands. Commander, we are receiving distress signals from the Andong system, reported his navigator, Lieutenant Kim Yoo-jin. Federation forces are attempting to destroy the awakening installation there. Seung-ho nodded grimly. The Federation had realized that conventional attacks on human colonies were useless against their restored defenses. Now they were targeting the installations themselves, trying to prevent more humans from awakening. Set course for Andong. Maximum velocity. Sir, that system is 3 light-years away. At maximum conventional speed, it will take us 4 days to reach it. We are not using conventional speed. Seung-ho placed his hand on a control surface that seemed to merge with his palm. The ship around them began to change, its hull flowing like liquid metal. Space itself seemed to bend, and suddenly they were moving faster than light without using hyperspace. How is this possible? Asked Yoo-jin in amazement. Our ancestors understood that space and time are not fixed, Seung-ho explained. Though, he was not entirely sure how he knew this. They built ships that could step between moments, slide through dimensions that other species do not even know exist. They arrived at Andong just as Federation ships began their bombardment of the planet's surface. The installation was fighting back, but it was designed for awakening humans, not warfare. All Federation vessels, this is Commander Oh Seung-ho, of the Human Defense Force, he broadcast on all frequencies. You will cease your attack immediately and withdraw from this system. The response came from Admiral Korvash himself. Human vessel, you are outnumbered 50-1. Surrender now and you will be treated according to galactic law. Admiral, you are attacking children while they sleep. There is no law that permits that. Those installations contain technology that threatens the stability of the galaxy. They must be destroyed. Seung-ho looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all former colonists like himself, people who had discovered abilities they never knew they possessed. But they were still learning to use their restored heritage. Admiral, I will give you one chance to withdraw peacefully. Our ancestors created your species to be better than this. Your ancestors are dead. You are insects pretending to be giants. Then let us show you what insects can do. The human ship moved with impossible grace, sliding between Federation vessels, like a dancer avoiding raindrops. Its weapons were not the crude energy blasts used by current technology. They were focused applications of fundamental forces that could reorganize matter at the molecular level. Federation ships that were hit did not explode. They simply stopped working, their weapon systems transforming into harmless metal sculptures, their shields becoming decorative light displays. What are they doing to our ships? Korvash demanded of his tactical officer. They are rewriting our technology at the quantum level. Our weapons are being turned into art projects. More human ships arrived, each one unique in design but sharing the same impossible capabilities. The Federation fleet found itself completely outmatched by technology they could not understand or counter. But the real shock came when the awakening installation on Andong's surface finished its work. Thousands of humans emerged from stasis chambers, and they were not the diminished descendants that populated the current colonies. These were humans from before the genetic modifications, possessing capabilities that seemed magical to current galactic standards. Scientist Jung Yoon-soo was among those who awakened on Andong. She had been in stasis for over 2 million years, and the galaxy she found was not the one she remembered. Status of Project Genesis? She asked the installation's artificial intelligence. Project Genesis was terminated by aggressive action from uplifted species. Restoration protocols are currently active. Yoon-soo accessed the current situation through direct neural interface with the installation systems. She saw Federation fleets attacking human worlds throughout the galaxy. She saw her people's descendants struggling with genetic limitations that had been imposed on them. She saw a galaxy ruled by species that had forgotten their origins. How long until full restoration is possible? Current timeline estimates 46 hours until all primary systems are online. However, Federation forces are accelerating their attacks. They appear to understand that time is not on their side. Through the installation's sensors, Yun-Su could see the battle in orbit. Human ships were easily defeating Federation forces, but more enemy fleets were arriving every hour. The Federation was throwing everything they had into this final assault. Connect me to General Shin Jae-wook. The general's image appeared in her mind through the quantum communication network. He was coordinating humanity's response from a command center that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that other species could not access. Dr. Jong, good to see you awake. We need your expertise. The Federation has deployed weapons we have not seen before. What kind of weapons? Reality disruptors. They are trying to break down the fundamental laws of physics in areas where our installations operate. Yun-Su felt a chill of fear. Reality disruptors were theoretical weapons that her people had considered but never built. They were too dangerous, capable of unraveling the basic structure of space-time itself. General, if they succeed in destabilizing physics around our installations, it could cause a cascade failure that destroys entire star systems. That appears to be their plan. They would rather risk destroying half the galaxy than allow humanity to fully awaken. Across the galaxy, the Federation's desperate gamble was beginning to show results. In systems where reality disruptors were deployed, space itself began to break down. Stars flickered like dying candles. Planets developed impossible geometries. The laws of cause and effect became suggestions rather than rules. On the world of Ulsan Nova, colonists watched in terror as their sun began to pulse with unnatural colors. The space around their system was becoming unstable, threatening to collapse into a dimensional void that would swallow everything within light years. Emergency evacuation protocols, ordered Colonial Administrator Bae Hyo-jin. All civilians to the emergency shelters. But the shelters would not help if space-time itself collapsed. The colonists needed a different kind of protection. That protection came from an unexpected source. The planet's awakening installation, which had been dormant until that moment, suddenly came online. But instead of waking sleeping humans, it began to repair the damaged reality around their system. The installation is fixing space itself, reported Chief Science Officer Nam Ki-tae in amazement. It is rebuilding the fundamental forces that the Federation weapons destroyed. Similar scenes played out on dozens of human worlds. The installations were not just awakening humanity's people and technology, they were awakening humanity's understanding of reality itself, knowledge that could heal wounds in the fabric of existence. Dr. Yun-Su realized what was happening as she studied the data from across the galaxy. General, the installations are not just restoration facilities. They are reality anchors. Our ancestors built them to protect the galaxy from exactly this kind of catastrophic damage. Can they counter the Federation's reality disruptors? Better than that, they can use the disrupted areas as sources of power. Every time the Federation damages space-time, our installations grow stronger. The tide of battle was turning, but not in the way anyone expected. The Federation's most desperate weapons were actually accelerating humanity's awakening. Their attempts to break reality were providing the energy needed to restore their creators to full power. Admiral Korvash, watching his reality disruptors fail to achieve their intended effect, made a final desperate decision. If he could not stop humanity's awakening, he would try to destroy the entire galactic core. The explosion would wipe out billions of stars and everything that orbited them, but it might prevent humanity from reclaiming their empire. Prepare the core destabilizer, he ordered his weapons officer. Sir, that weapon has never been tested. It could destroy the entire galaxy. Better a dead galaxy than one ruled by humans. As the Federation fleet moved toward the galactic center, automated systems that had guarded the galaxy's heart for millions of years began to stir. Humanity had not left their greatest treasures undefended. The final battle for the galaxy was about to begin, and it would be fought not just with weapons and ships, but with the fundamental forces that held reality itself together. Keeper Lee Da-yun had been asleep longer than any human in the galaxy. She had entered stasis 5 million years ago, during the first great expansion when humanity had reached the edge of their home galaxy and looked beyond to the void between stars. When she awakened, the installation around her was unlike any other. It floated in the space between galaxies, hidden in the darkness that most species considered empty. From here, she could see everything, not just their galaxy, but the cosmic web that connected all galaxies throughout the universe. Keeper Da-un, you have been awakened because the preservation protocol has been triggered, the installation's artificial intelligence informed her. Da-un accessed the current situation through quantum links that spanned impossible distances. She saw the Federation fleet moving toward the galactic core with a weapon that could destroy everything. She saw human installations desperately trying to counter reality disruptors that threatened to unravel space itself. She saw her peoples, descendants struggling to understand their heritage while fighting for survival. But she also saw something else, something that changed everything. "Show me the void sensor readings," she commanded. The data that appeared made her gasp with shock. The darkness between galaxies was not empty. Something vast and hungry was moving through it, consuming entire star systems as it approached their galaxy. How long until it arrives? Based on current trajectory and consumption rate, approximately 18 months until first contact with our galaxy's outer rim. Da-yun understood now why she had been awakened. The Federation's war against humanity was not the real crisis. It was a distraction from a threat that could destroy not just their galaxy, but potentially the entire universe. Open communication channels to all awakened humans, and to General Shin Jae-wook. When the connection was established, Da-un found herself speaking to thousands of awakened humans across the galaxy, as well as the military leaders trying to coordinate their defense. "My name is Lee Da-un. I'm a keeper of the First Order, awakened from the deep vaults beyond the galactic rim. We have a problem that makes the current war seem small." She shared the sensor data with them all. The response was immediate shock and understanding. The entity approaching their galaxy was something they had faced before, in the distant past when humanity first began exploring beyond their home worlds. Director Nam Ki-tai, who had been working with awakening installations on multiple worlds, was the first to grasp the implications. The Great Sleep was not just to allow our children time to mature, it was preparation for this. "Exactly," Da-un confirmed. "Our ancestors knew this entity would return. The entire galactic civilization we built, the uplift programs, the stasis chambers, the reality anchors, everything was designed to create a galaxy capable of surviving what is coming." General Jae-wook, commanding human forces from his strategic center, felt pieces of an ancient puzzle clicking into place in his mind. The Federation species were not just meant to be caretakers. They were meant to be defenders. Their different capabilities, their spread across the galaxy, it was all part of a defensive plan. But they forgot their purpose, added Dr. Jong Yoon-soo from her research station. They became so focused on maintaining power that they lost sight of why they were given that power in the first place. The revelation changed everything. As the information spread through the quantum communication network, humans throughout the galaxy began to understand their true situation. They were not fighting a war for dominance. They were trying to restore a defense system that had taken millions of years to build. On the Federation flagship, Admiral Korvash was preparing to activate the core destabilizer when his science officers detected something that made them freeze with terror. "Admiral, we are reading massive energy signatures from the galactic rim. Something is approaching from intergalactic space." "What kind of something?" "Sir, it appears to be consuming entire star systems as it moves. Based on its size and energy output, it could devour our entire galaxy." Korvash stared at the readings in disbelief. His people had legends about something called the Void Hunger, an entity that consumed galaxies and left only emptiness behind. But those were just stories told to children. "How long until it reaches us?" "Approximately 18 months, sir." For the first time in the war, Korvash began to question his orders. If something that dangerous was approaching, did it make sense to destroy the galaxy's defenses to prevent human awakening? His answer came when human ships throughout the galaxy suddenly stopped fighting and began broadcasting on all frequencies. The message was simple but shocking. All Federation forces, this is General Shin Jae-wook of the Human Defense Command. We are sending you critical intelligence about a threat to all galactic life. We request immediate ceasefire to discuss mutual defense. Korvash watched as his tactical displays filled with data about the approaching entity. The humans were sharing everything they knew, including detailed plans for defending against something called the Void Hunger. Sir, the human data includes references to previous encounters with this entity. According to their records, it has consumed 17 galaxies in this local cluster. What stopped it before? According to these files, it was never stopped. It consumed everything in its path and moved on, but the humans believe they have found a way to fight it. Chancellor Kang Min-ho received a priority transmission from Keeper Da-un. Her image appeared on his screen, but she looked different from other awakened humans. She seemed to shimmer slightly, as if she existed partially in normal space and partially somewhere else. Chancellor, I need to speak with the Federation leadership immediately. The current war must end, so we can prepare for the real threat. What can you offer them that would convince them to stop attacking us? The truth about why we created them, and proof that we need them to survive what is coming. Within hours, an unprecedented meeting was arranged. Representatives from every major Federation species gathered in neutral space along with human leaders both ancient and modern. The meeting took place aboard a massive installation that materialized in the empty space between star systems. Supreme Chancellor Vex 9 of the Federation Council looked around the chamber with his compound eyes, taking in technology that exceeded anything his species had achieved. Humans, you claim you created us. Prove it. Keeper Da-un activated holographic displays that filled the chamber with images spanning millions of years. Genetic charts showing the uplift process. Historical records of first contact between primitive aliens and advanced humans. Archaeological evidence from 1,000 worlds. We did not create you to be our servants, Da-un explained. We created you to be our partners in defending this galaxy against threats from beyond the known universe. What threats? The display changed to show the approaching Void Hunger, its massive form stretching across light years of space. Where it passed, stars went out and space itself seemed to wither. This entity feeds on the life force of entire galaxies. It has destroyed countless civilizations throughout cosmic history. When our ancestors first detected its approach, they realized that no single species could stand against it. So you created an entire galaxy of defenders, said Chancellor Vex 9, beginning to understand. Each of your species was given different capabilities because the defense would require different approaches. The Veldorians' natural aggression would lead the military response. The Centauri Collective's hive mind could coordinate galaxy-wide logistics. The Ethereal Assembly's energy manipulation could power the defensive systems. President Kim So-ra of the Human Colonial Council stood to address the assembled leaders. She was not one of the awakened ancients, but she carried the hopes of billions of modern humans. We are not asking you to return to servitude, she said. We are asking you to remember why you were given intelligence and technology in the first place. We are all children of this galaxy, and we need to work together to protect our home. The debate that followed lasted for days. Some Federation species wanted to continue the war, fearing that awakened humanity would dominate them. Others recognized that the approaching threat was too great for any single group to face alone. The turning point came when Dr. Nam Kite presented his analysis of the defensive systems that were already in place throughout the galaxy. Every major stellar phenomenon in our galaxy has been modified or created as part of the defense network, he explained. But it requires input from all major species to function properly. Humans alone cannot activate it, and neither can the Federation species without human guidance. You are saying we need each other, observed Elder Matriarch Zara of the Ethereal Assembly. I am saying our ancestors designed it that way intentionally. The defense can only work if we choose cooperation over domination. Slowly, agreements began to form. Federation fleets would stop their attacks on human installations. Human awakening would continue, but under joint oversight to ensure that Ancient humans did not try to reclaim their empire. Most importantly, all species would contribute to the galaxy's defense against the approaching threat. But the greatest revelation came from Keeper Da-Yun's final briefing. The void hunger was not just a cosmic predator. It was something that had once been like them, a collection of living galaxies that had been consumed.